Okay, so we've got our line and our square, exciting stuff. And now we need to have another square. You can see up here. Oops, sorry, go on the next page. So I'm zooming in on that so you can see. We need another square after drawing that line above. To the right, 1,000. Or we want 1,000 or a metre gap between the two squares. So of course, if it wasn't clear before, we're working in millimetres, and that's something you should always, the units you should always be using in design. I know some people take a while to get out of the habit of using centimetres. It took me a while, but you've got to use millimetres. So if it's not specified, you can just assume that your program's working in millimetres. And then we, again, want a copy that's separated by a metre. So that actually means we've got a copy across 2 metres, because this square is a metre wide, we want a metre gap, so we're actually moving it across, of course, 2 metres. If it was 1 metre, they'd be adjoining. So how do we do that? Firstly, it's best if you make sure there are no commands running. So remember before I said you can press enter to do that when you complete a command. But if you're not sure, you might have clicked on a button, say you clicked on the text button by mistake or done something else, you can always press escape. So the escape key always gets you out of trouble, takes you back to that command prompt where again it's asking you to type a new command. And that's important because when you select objects, it makes a difference. So I've just if you missed it, clicked a point next to my square, not on it. If I click on the line, I've got to click on each line individually. It works, but it takes longer than the other way I'm going to show you. So again, to get out of trouble, we'll go back to the normal start. I'm going to press escape, and I want to make a window around that square, so I'm just going to click next to it and then go around it. It's that easy. But notice I clicked and I clicked again. I didn't click and drag. If you click and drag, it works a bit differently. It does that sort of lasso selection, which works as well. But for something like this, it is easier just to click again, and you'll know it's working in the right way because you see these blue squares come up. They're called grips, and they are really useful things that you'll use later on to do different things as well. But all we need to do now is select that square. So as long as you can see the blue grips have come up, that means you've selected it. Then you can click the copy button. So again, this is up on the Home tab in that Modify panel. You've got Copy. Click on that, and it's going to find the thing that you've selected, that square. It's good just to see what's happening when you click on the little up arrow on the command line, and you can see if it's working or not. It'll tell you it's found those 4 lines, so you know it's working. So the first thing it's asking for, now that we've said we want to copy, is a base point. You can see on the command line. And it's really good when you're first learning the program to just watch that command line pretty much every step, so you can see what's happening. So it's asking for a base point. We need to give that first. That can be anywhere. Okay, so if you click below the square, that's fine. The base point doesn't have to be on the square. It can be anywhere at all. Now we want to move that square to the right, so we have to give the direction using the mouse. So again, taking it in the direction we want to copy, which is to the right, or 0 degrees. Then we type in the distance, which is, like I said before, 2,000. Enter, and we've copied our square. That easy. Now, I said I'm going to show you some different options. So there are some other ways of doing this. In AutoCAD, there are usually hundreds of different ways you could do almost anything. It's a really flexible program. Well, in this case, it's the same. It's relative to the previous position. But yeah, technically you're right. It is from that point, the pin, the base point, yeah, that you're setting out that 2 metres. Yeah. So that works. But I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to copy my square, this time by clicking some points. So I'll click a point on the screen, just like I did before, to give my base point. You always have to do that. Don't get into the habit of pressing enter. I know a lot of people don't understand base points and make it hard for themselves, but it's actually quite easy if you just remember to click. Then this time I'm going to bring it up I'm not going to type in a distance, I'm just going to click a point to copy it a distance that I've set by eye, just by clicking points on the screen. I've done that just so I can show you another way of getting a square that's 2 metres to the right. I'm going to go back to drawing a line, and I'm just going to hover near the corner of the square, move the cursor to the right, and notice how it's come up with that extension line. So I'm going to type 1,000, enter, and notice how it's picked up that point, a metre from the corner. So it knew where I was. I'll just show that again because it's a little bit tricky at first. So clicking the line, hover on that point, move to the right, and it gives you what's called a tracking line. Yeah, that's great. So for setting things out, you often have to do that in design. You want to start a certain distance from something else. So we can go 1,000, right, and that's our new start point. And then type in the distances just like you did before. Show you one more way. This time I'll use rectangle. Okay, so the rectangle command obviously will give us a square if we type in equal measurements. So clicking on rectangle, I can do the same thing. Hover on that point, move to the right, type 1,000. So that's my start point. And this time, I'm going to type in 1,000, comma, oops, not point, sorry, comma, 1,000. That gives me a square as well, but this is a connected square because I used the rectangle command. But otherwise, basically the same as the others. Depends on what you want. But yeah, probably it is usually. Yeah. If you know it's a rectangle that you want, then yeah. Because you can always, if you want to, separate it back into the individual lines really easily.
If you've got the rectangle, can you delete individual lines?
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, so you have to separate it first. So if I select that square or rectangle, then you've got this tool here, Explode, which we're going to look at later. Click on that. Now they're lines. It's just like I've drawn it with the line command. Yeah.
And can you do the opposite? Can you do the square you've drawn the line?
Absolutely.
And group it?
You can. Yeah, it's a bit more involved, so I'll show you that later. But yeah, of course you can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, so that's the second square, and then, like I was saying, you don't need to reproduce exactly what's there. It's good to experiment and maybe do some extra things and just play around, but try and at least get the things that you can see there as well. So the next thing we want is the circle, I think. Yeah, so you want to draw some circles on layer 2. So up here, we can change to layer 2. Now, you can either just draw things in different places, or if you want to move things so that you can arrange it the same way it is in the example, you can do what I showed you before. Make sure nothing's running, there are no commands running. It says type a command on the command line, and you can select anything you like. And then you could use the move command, but it's actually easier just to click and drag, as long as you don't get one of those blue squares. Just click and drag anywhere on, say, the line there, and you can just move things around like that. It's that easy. Okay, so I just made some room for myself underneath. And now I'm going to use the circle command. So with the instructions in the notes, oops, where are we? Okay, so you need to draw a circle that's 1 metre in diameter, but using the centre radius option. So this might seem like a really simple question, but if the diameter is 1,000, what's the radius? 500, yep, so hopefully you all remember that. Well, probably didn't even remember when you were taught that, I'm sure everyone knows that. But then if you click on the drop down there, you can draw a circle by entering the diameter, but it's good just to try the centre radius one first. So you can click on the down arrow and then choose centre radius, or if you click on the top there, that will probably give you centre radius anyway. But it's good to have a look at the options. I'll choose centre radius from that menu there. And I'm just going to click a point. That's my centre point. And then type in my radius. That easy. Okay, there's my circle. Probably a bit hard to see because of the colour. So I might just change that colour just to make it easier to see on the screen to a lighter blue. You can see here why it's good to use layers to set your colours, because it means you don't have to I'll select each object just to change the colour. So now we need to draw some more circles. So again, going back to the notes, so I've got in this one. Okay, so here just suggests that you can then use the other options, centre diameter and 2 point, to see how they work. So going back to the menu there, so you've got centre diameter. So it works in a similar way. You click a centre point, but then type 1,000 instead of 500, and you'll get a circle that's the same size. And then the other option is 2 point. So instead of clicking the centre and then giving the measurement, you click 2 different points. And that's a really useful option in design. So with 2 point, I'm just going to click a point for one side of the circle, move the cursor, and I might keep an eye on polar there and make sure it's snapping to that angle, even though that's not really essential, but I'll do it. And then type in 1,000. Now, the circles are all the same size, but drawn with different methods. And then the other circles, you can see here the next set of circles on layer 3 are half the radius, or half the diameter, same thing. So we want 500 mil diameter, which of course will be 250 mil radius, but we'll use, I suppose, centre diameter to draw that. So firstly, go to layer 3, and then back to centre diameter, draw the circle, click the centre point, and then type in 500. Oops. Enter. Now, my line weights, oh yeah, they are coming up. It's just a light line weight for that, that layer. That's okay. And so then the circle just needs to be copied. And you can do that all in one go. So you can see here it gives you a series of sequential measurements. So it's 1,000, then 2,000, then 3,000. So I'll show you how to do that. You can select the circle, click copy, and then again, click a base point. Now, did James show you a different method? Did he show you to use displacement on Monday, or did he show you this way? So, yeah. Was he showing you with clicking a base point though, or? Oh, right, okay. Well, don't worry about that. The base point can be anywhere if you're using that method. Yeah. Yeah, it's only if you use the displacement option that it works a bit differently, but we'll look at that later. Yeah. Oh, yes, sure. I'll release it in a second. Yeah. Okay, so we'll stick with this base point method. So essentially the base point, it could be the centre, but it's important that you realise the base point can be anywhere. And it's actually a bad habit. A lot of people who don't really know, they tend to use points on the object they're copying and really limit what they're trying to do, when the base point's a really useful thing. It can be anywhere else. So I'll just show you, it can be down here. Doesn't matter. The important thing is where we go from there. So firstly, we want to go 1,000 to the right. So I'm using polar to snap to the angle I want from the point that I've clicked. That's the important thing. So we'll go 1,000, and then keeping it at the same angle, 2,000, and then again keeping the same angle, and then 3,000. Okay, so I've got my 3 copies, and so as always, to finish the command, you can press escape, but probably it's better to get used to using enter. And there's the circles. Oops. Okay, so then the final thing is to use the arc tool, and I'll come back to the other part afterwards, but to use that arc tool, you can experiment and come up with your own shape for that. So the important thing there is you just try out some of these different methods. The first one there, 3 points, probably the easiest. I'm going to change back to layer 1 so that it's easier for you to see it as well. So if I go now to that arc menu and choose 3 point, I'll click a start point, or first point, and then the second point. And I'm zooming while I do this, just so it's clear. You can do that. And then a third point. It's that easy. So 3 point, I'll do another one of those just so you can see how it works. So you're clicking 3 points that all lie on the arc. I'll choose a different method, so I'm going to use start center end. So that works differently. The start point works the same, but then the center point, again remembering an arc is just a segment of a circle, so it has the center. So I'll just click that over here, and then you can see there that goes from that start point to the end point. And notice it's going in a certain direction. Right, you can change that direction, but for now just go with the direction. It's actually easy to change, so I'll show you that. You hold down Control and you can make it go the other way if you want. Yeah, start center end. Yeah. So is there anything you can think of where that might be a useful option?
If you want to, like,
Exactly.
transfer into the circle.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Door swings. It's the number one thing. Yeah. Because doors obviously have a door swing that's centered on the hinge.
Or arch windows.
Yep, same thing, exactly. That's right. Yep, yep. So yeah, so centre end is a really good one. But then there are all these other options. So try another one. I'll just choose one at random. Start end radius. That'll do. Okay, so with start end radius, you click a start point, then an end point, and then you can either use the cursor or type in a radius. So I'll type in 1, so I'll make it 2,000.
Could you use that as a seat on a wall? If you had like an arch.
Oh, of course.
seat wall?
Yep, absolutely, yep. So with any of those options though, notice how when you select the arc afterwards, they're all the same. So we can either change the centre point using those grips, or we can use that one in the middle to change the curve. Or we can move the endpoints. It's really flexible. Yep. So, yep, just experiment and get familiar with that tool. And honestly, most of the curves you do, you should be able to do with that arc tool. So with line and arc, you can do nearly everything you need for your drawings. Yep, so I'll give you some time to try that. And then we've just got a little bit to finish off, and we can move, we'll get the next exercise done for as well.